Good evening. You're listening to Mafia Memories, where every episode pulls you into the mind of a real underworld legend. Tonight's confession comes from a man known only as the Architect, a name whispered in back alleys and police precincts, but never spoken in court. In the 1970s, he designed and executed 5 precision-perfect bank heists across 3 states, walking away with over $1 million in untraceable cash and vanishing like smoke in the wind. No one knows who he really was. No arrests, no fingerprints, no bodies. But tonight, I'm the Architect, and I'm going to take you back into vaults thick with fear, getaways laced with gunfire, and the 5 robberies that made me a myth. So sit tight, because the story I'm about to tell, it ain't just about money. It's about loyalty, brilliance, and betrayal. You never forget the sound a .38 makes when it goes off in a bank lobby. Not in the movies, not on TV, but in real life. It's sharp, raw, like someone tearing through the air with a rusted knife. That sound marked the beginning of the end for me. It was September 1977, 5th and final job. Buffalo, New York. The Buffalo Trust Federal on a Monday morning. Rain smeared the city in shades of gray, and we picked that day for a reason. End of weekend armored delivery, skeleton crew, sleepy guards. I'd walked the blueprint 100 times in my head, memorized every vent, every camera angle, even the frequency of the guards' bathroom breaks. But no plan survives the first punch, or in this case, the first scream. We walked in like phantoms, masks up, weapons drawn. Me, Frankie Buttons Leone, Ray Costa, and Jules. 4 men, 1 minute from either $1 million or prison bars. I remember the cold sweat running down my back as I vaulted the teller line, my gloved fingers dancing over the alarm panel, punching in the code we paid a janitor $5 grand to steal. I heard Frankie barking orders, his Brooklyn drawl cutting through the chaos like a whip. Phones on the ground. Nobody plays hero. Nobody gets hurt. I heard the guard before I saw him. Some rookie, barely 20, hand trembling as he fumbled for his revolver. I spun just in time to see Ray tackle him, the 2 of them crashing into a desk, papers flying. Then the gun went off. Everything stopped for a second. The sound tore through the vault door like a thunderclap. A woman screamed. Someone started sobbing. I stared at Ray, waiting for blood, for death. But the guard had missed. The shot hit the ceiling. Ray pistol-whipped him unconscious. 10 seconds behind schedule, I hissed into my mic. My heartbeat felt like a drumline. We were already on thin ice. Jules was already in the vault, bagging cash, precision, efficiency. We were moving like a machine until the machine started to jam. An off-duty cop in the lobby. We didn't count on that. Plain clothes, sipping coffee like any other schmuck. But when he clocked the scene, he didn't freeze. He moved. He went for his ankle holster. I saw it out of the corner of my eye. Right side, hostile. Too late. He fired. Bullet hit the counter inches from Jules' head. Jules ducked, dropped the cash. Panic erupted. I didn't think. I just acted. Drew and fired once. The cop went down, clutching his leg. I don't know if I killed him. I didn't go back to check. We were out of time. Abort extraction, plan echo, I snapped. The team moved like clockwork, dropped bags, set off the smokescreen charges, bolted for the maintenance exit out back. Sirens already in the distance. Rain coming down like judgment. We sprinted into the alley, hearts pounding. We didn't get the full take, not even close. But we got out, barely. And that, right there, that moment of chaos, of survival, that was when I knew. This life, it doesn't end with a paycheck. It ends with blood. They called me the Architect because I didn't just rob banks. I designed every job like a blueprint for a cathedral. Every detail, every timing, every exit route. And like a real architect, I never picked up the hammer. I didn't fire the first shot. Not until I had to. I was born Michael Arcuri in 1948 in the Red Hook neighborhood of Brooklyn. Back then, the docks still roared with longshoremen. The streets buzzed with dice games and whispered deals. My old man, Carlo, ran numbers for the Colombo crew. Nothing major, just another suit behind a social club who made enough to feed us and gamble the rest. He used to tell me, "Brains'll take you further than bullets, Mikey. Just don't forget who owns the street." By the time I was 12, I was running errands for the neighborhood wise guys. Cigarettes, loan payments, once even walked a suitcase up to a bookie in the Bronx. Never opened it, never asked. But what I really loved? Maps, diagrams, blueprints. I had a photographic memory and a thing for puzzles. I'd stare at the city planning maps in the library, tracing sewer lines and bank layouts like treasure maps. High school? I dropped out junior year. No future there, but I never stopped learning. I studied alarm systems, getaway tactics, even how die packs worked. That's how it started, a kid with a knack for schematics and a stomach for crime. First real break came in '68. I was 20, running poker nights in the back of Gianni Ferrero's pizzeria. That's where I met Frankie Leone. Buttons, they called him, 'cause he always wore these loud-ass silk shirts with big brass buttons. Frankie was older, meaner, but he saw something in me, said I had a mind like a chessboard. He introduced me to Ray Costa, ex-military, tight-lipped, deadly with a shotgun. Then Jules DeMarco, smooth, college-educated, our grease man. We were nobodies then, just four guys with empty pockets and big ideas. But things changed in 1970. That's when Salvatore, Big Sal Mancini, took notice. Sal ran operations for the Bonanno family out of Jersey. Shylocks, hijackings, numbers, and a little bit of bank muscle on the side. He'd heard about this kid architect who could case a bank like he was designing it. One night, Sal had me picked up in a black Buick, driven across the river, and dropped in front of a steakhouse in Newark. He was already eating when I arrived. Didn't offer me a seat, just slid a napkin across the table with a bank name on it. Said, "You show me how to rob this place without anyone dying, you're in." 3 days later, I walked into the same steakhouse, handed him a manila folder, and walked out. 2 weeks after that, the job went down. No alarms, no injuries, and 60,000 in bearer bonds vanished into thin air. I never touched a weapon. Sal never stopped calling. That's when I became the architect. Not just another thief, the mind behind the muscle. Once Sal opened the door, everything changed. No more nickel and dime scams. We were in the majors now. He gave me resources, muscle, equipment, inside guys, and in return, I gave him flawless jobs. Every plan I handed over was surgical, timing down to the second, escape routes tested twice over, contingency layers stacked like cards. I never walked into a place I hadn't already seen in my mind 100 times. But I wasn't just doing it for Sal. I was building something of my own, a team. Frankie, Ray, Jules. They were more than partners. We were brothers, bound by blood we hadn't yet spilled. Each had his role. Frankie handled the intimidation, Ray controlled the perimeter, and Jules finessed the vaults. Me? I stayed behind the curtain, pulled the strings, watched the whole thing unfold from a distance. Or so I like to think. By 1972, we were doing our own jobs between Sal's assignments. Quiet ones. Independent. He didn't know. Or maybe he did, and just let us fly under the radar as long as he got his cut when needed. We moved like ghosts. No names, no prints. Cash only. We used burner apartments to plan, warehouses to stage gear. even practiced routes in decommissioned subway tunnels. My obsession was perfection. Mistakes weren't allowed, and if someone made one, they were gone. We weren't killers by trade, but we didn't leave loose ends. Still, we needed inside men. That's where Angie came in. Angela Marino, bank clerk, Sicilian roots, brother in Rikers. She was introduced by a mutual friend who owed me favors. Angie had access, vault schedules, alarm codes, staff rotations. But more than that, she had loyalty. And maybe I had a weakness for her. She helped us on the first real job I designed under my name, a small savings bank in Bayonne. Clean, fast, no resistance. 68 grand and change. Her cut was 10%. I gave her 20. She kissed me that night like I was the last man left on earth. From then on, I was hooked. On the job, on her, on the power of it all. Every heist, every whisper of a new score felt like fuel. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. But the higher we climbed, the thinner the air got. Sal started sniffing around, asking questions. The mob doesn't like independence. It doesn't like secrets, and we had both. So I promised myself, 5 jobs. Just 5. Then I'd vanish, take the team, the money, maybe even Angie, and disappear. What I didn't know was that someone else made a promise too, one that would shatter everything. Heist 1, Bayonne Savings and Loan, April 1973. It was supposed to be a trial run, a soft entry. Bayonne, New Jersey, a sleepy savings bank on Kennedy Boulevard, the kind of place where old women deposited church money and bored clerks filled crossword puzzles behind the counter. No guards, no cameras, just a single alarm wire and a rusty vault. Angie gave us the schedule. Mondays were best. Manager opened the loan. 2 tellers arrived 15 minutes later. We'd have a window. 13 minutes, tops. We posed as repairmen, water main inspectors. Frankie and Ray wore coveralls, walked in with toolboxes. I waited in the van, listening over the wire we tapped through Ray's modified CB radio. Clock's running, I said, when the manager let them in. They moved fast. Frankie drew down. Ray locked the door. Manager went pale. No heroics. Jules followed, hit the security panel with a homemade jammer, a little device I built using parts from an old Magnavox TV. It froze the alarm for 18 minutes. Vault was half open. Angie's tip. We didn't even have to force it. Jules scooped the cash. 68 grand. Mostly in bundles of 20s and 50s. No masks. No fingerprints. Out in 8 minutes. Back at the warehouse. We toasted with cheap whiskey. Our first real score. And I'll never forget what Ray said, lighting a cigarette with hands that didn't even shake. We're gonna be legends, Mikey. Fucking legends. Heist 2. Newark City Credit Union, November 1973. By now, we had momentum. Sal didn't ask where the extra money was coming from, or if he did, he kept it to himself. The credit union was trickier. Security cameras, a guard, more staff. But we had a new tool, a guy named Bobby Klein, ex-Bell Telephone, wiretap artist. I paid him 2 grand to monitor the branch's phone lines and alarm signals for 2 weeks. What we learned? They tested the alarm every Thursday at 9:03 a.m., so we hit them at 9:01. Jules posed as a technician from Bell, walked in during business hours. While inside, he disabled the panic signal using a relay trick Bobby taught us. Then we moved. Ray and Frankie followed with shotguns. I stayed in the back, monitoring police dispatch with a scanner Bobby rigged. The guard reached for his pistol. Ray broke his hand with the butt of the shotgun. No shots, just pain. We were in and out in 11 minutes, 75 grand heavier. But something went wrong. On the way out, Frankie slipped, twisted his ankle, bad. We had to carry him halfway to the car. It was the first time I felt real fear. One mistake, and it all unravels. That night, I started designing contingencies. Exit plans, inside exit plans. Heist 3, The Fulton Trust, July 1974. This was the big leagues. Manhattan, Midtown. I wouldn't have touched it if not for Angie. She had a cousin working as a night custodian there. Guy owed her a favor and had a gambling problem. Said the vault was being serviced that weekend. Skeleton crew. A perfect storm. I spent a month casing it. Cameras, motion sensors, rotating guards from an outside firm. I even followed their armored truck routes on foot for a week. This job needed more than muscle. It needed finesse. We went in through the underground parking on a Friday night, disguised as a moving crew. Big Sal provided forged permits, and Jules rented a Ryder truck that looked legit enough to fool God himself. Inside, our insider left us keys to the freight elevator and a bypass card for the sub-level alarm. But once we hit the 4th floor, vault level, we had a problem. The cleaning crew had swapped shifts. There was a woman there, mid-50s, caught Jules trying to open the server panel. She screamed. Frankie grabbed her, not rough, just firm. "Shut her up," I hissed over comms. Not kill her, just silence. But Frankie went too far, backhanded her across the mouth, split her lip. We'd never hurt anyone like that before. It rattled Jules, rattled me. Still, we pressed on. Vault opened with a thermal lance Jules prepped. Loud and dirty, but effective. 37 minutes of fire and sparks. No alarms triggered. We emptied what we could. Bearer bonds, jewelry, a sack of unmarked bills. Total take, 212 grand. Our biggest yet. But that woman's scream, I still hear it. That job changed us. There was blood on the blueprint now. Heist 4, Garden State Bank, Trenton, March 1976. This one was personal. A friend of mine, Lenny Tucci, used to own a dry cleaner next to that bank. Good guy. Lenny got strong-armed into laundering mob cash. When the feds raided him, he refused to snitch. Did 5 years. Came out broke. So I decided to rob the place that ruined him. It was reckless, emotionally charged. But I planned it anyway. We used gas masks and planted smoke bombs in the building's HVAC system. Set them off 5 minutes before the hit. Whole lobby was choking in fog. Jules disabled the vault lock using a timing bypass we practiced for weeks. Ray kept time like a drill sergeant. Then something unexpected happened. Angie showed up. She didn't tell me she was coming. Said she just wanted to see it for herself. Said she wanted to feel what I felt. Madness. I should have sent her home, but I didn't. I let her watch from the car, from the alley across the street. We made it out with 120 grand, but the risk was rising. Cops were getting smarter. Surveillance, better. And worse, I was slipping, letting my heart in. It was supposed to be the last one. Buffalo Trust Federal. September 1977. $1 million score on paper. 5 banks, 5 years, and this was our crown jewel. The plan was airtight, every detail rehearsed. We even had new masks, molded silicone, no more ski masks. I wanted to go out clean, but paranoia had been creeping in like mold. Ray had gotten quiet, jumpy. Ever since Trenton, he wasn't the same. I caught him checking the car twice before every meet, cleaning his gun when we were just talking blueprints. Jules had started drinking. Not enough to be sloppy, but enough to change him. And Frankie? He was just angry, always looking for someone to rough up. And Angie? Angie was pulling away. Less smiles, more questions. The job went sideways from the start. I already told you about the guard, the off-duty cop, the screaming. What I didn't tell you, not yet, is what happened after the alley escape. We had a safe house in Lackawanna, just outside the city. Cold, damp, barely furnished. We were supposed to lay low there, split the take, then vanish. New IDs, burner cars, the whole deal. But only 3 of us made it back. Jules never showed. At first, we thought he'd been caught, maybe winged by that cop. Ray kept scanning the radio, muttering, "He's smart, he'll make it." But Frankie? Frankie said nothing, just sat there smoking, staring at the floor. I should have seen it then. At 2 a.m., the door slammed open. Jules, battered, bleeding from his arm, clothes soaked from the rain. He looked like hell. "You left me," he spat, eyes locked on Frankie. "What the hell you talking about?" Frankie growled. "You were late to the exit point." "I was right behind you," Jules snapped. "You saw me." Frankie stood. "You calling me a liar, Jew boy?" Jules drew his pistol. "I'm calling you a rat." I froze. My heart was a jackhammer. Ray reached slowly for his piece. I raised both hands. "Everybody calm the hell down," I said. "Jules, talk to me." And then he said it. "Someone called the cops before we went in. You don't get a squad car showing up that fast unless someone tipped them. Someone wanted this job blown." We all looked at Frankie. Frankie didn't flinch. "You're paranoid." But Ray was pale now. "You knew about the off-duty cop, didn't you?" Frankie stood still, smoke curling from his nostrils. "You want to accuse me of something, Ray?" "Don't have to," Ray muttered. "I heard Sal's been asking questions. About Mikey, about our cuts." Silence. I stepped back, the pieces clicking into place. Frankie had been Sal's man first. He knew I was planning to disappear after the score, knew I'd cut ties. And Sal? He didn't let anyone walk away with that kind of money. It was Jules who broke the silence. He stepped forward, gun still raised. "I'll say it once. You sold us out." Frankie moved. Quick, fast, sudden. He reached for his waistband, but Jules fired first. Shot him in the chest. Frankie dropped like a stone, dead before he hit the carpet. I didn't scream, didn't move, just stood there as blood soaked into the floor. Ray turned to me, eyes wide. "What now, Mikey?" Now? Now everything I built was collapsing. I looked at Frankie's body, lifeless, leaking red into the filthy green carpet, and something in me shut off. Like a circuit breaker. Not grief. Not yet. Just cold, mechanical focus. That's what kept me alive all those years. Control. I had to take it back. "First we clean," I said, my voice flat. Jules looked at me like I was nuts. "We just killed Frankie. Sal's gonna know." "He already knows," I said. "Or he thinks he knows. Doesn't matter. He made his move. We just made ours." Ray grabbed a tarp from the closet. We always kept one on hand. That night, we wrapped Frankie up and drove his body to an old auto yard 2 counties over. Dropped him in a rusted-out Plymouth that was set for the crusher. No ID, no trace. By dawn, he was scrap. But the silence that followed, it was unbearable. Jules was spiraling, couldn't sleep, kept drinking, said he could feel eyes on him every time he stepped outside. Ray wasn't better. Started talking about skipping town before we even divided the cash. Said we should go to Mexico or even Europe. But I knew Sal wouldn't stop hunting. Not until he was sure I was dead or back under his thumb. So I made a choice. I told Jules and Ray we were going to split the million 3 ways and scatter. Disappear. Fake IDs. Cash only. I even gave them routes. Jules to Atlanta, Ray to Denver. Told them I'd head west myself. But that was a lie. The night before we were supposed to separate, I slipped out with the entire take. Left 2 duffel bags behind, stuffed with newspaper and a little seed money. Maybe 10 grand each. Enough to keep them alive. Not enough to find me. I changed everything. Cut my hair. Burned my prints off with acid. Took a fake name from a dead soldier buried in a cemetery outside Utica. New passport, new story. I disappeared into the cracks of America. To this day, I don't know what happened to Jules or Ray. Maybe they made it, maybe they didn't. I had to sever the ties. If Sal was going to come for me, he'd have to search every corner of this country, and he'd never find what he was really looking for, because I don't exist anymore. Michael Arcuri died that night in Buffalo. All that was left was the architect. People always ask, not to my face of course, but in the whispers that circle legends, what happened to the architect? Theories? I've heard them all. Some say I retired to South America, sipping rum on some hidden beach. Others think the mob caught up and dumped me in a river. A few even believe I got plastic surgery and became someone's neighbor in the suburbs. Truth is, all of that's wrong. Because I didn't run to paradise. I ran to the shadows. I live small now, quiet, off the grid. Town too small to name, buried somewhere between forgotten highways and broken dreams. I fix watches for a living. Fitting, ain't it? The man who used to measure jobs in seconds now spends his days adjusting time, one tick at a time. The money? Most of it's gone. Buried in cash-only deals, bribes, clean papers, silence. I still got some tucked away, sure, enough to keep the lights on. But it wasn't about the money in the end. Not really. You think 5 heists would make you feel invincible? They didn't. They made me paranoid, always looking over my shoulder, waiting for the wrong knock on the door. Every engine backfire makes me flinch. Every siren still turns my stomach. And the guilt? It doesn't fade. Not the blood, not Frankie, not Angie. Angie. I never saw her again after Buffalo. Didn't dare reach out. I heard from a friend of a friend that she moved to Chicago, started over, married a mechanic. I hope she's happy. She deserved better than the ghosts I left behind. Some nights I still see her, standing in that alley during the Trenton job, eyes wide, not with fear, but with understanding. Like she knew I was never coming back from all this, even if I lived. Ray and Jules? I've imagined it 1,000 ways. Maybe Jules sobered up, started over in Atlanta just like we planned. Maybe Ray made it to the Rockies and started a new life as a mechanic, or a drunk, or a drifter. Or maybe they hate me. Maybe they've got a bullet with my name on it. But I made peace with that. I built a machine. 5 heists, 5 perfect blueprints. But I forgot the human variable. Trust, loyalty, love. Those weren't numbers I could calculate. And in the end, that's what brought it all down. I sometimes wonder if I could do it all again. Go back, change one move, one plan, one night. Would I still walk into that first bank in Bayonne? Would I still trust Frankie? Would I still leave Angie behind? But you don't get second drafts in this life. You get what you steal, and you pay for it in time, blood, or silence. There are days I miss it. Not the money, not the fear, but the precision, the dance, pulling a job that sings like a symphony. For a few perfect minutes, I was the smartest man in the room, and then it was over, always over. Now I'm just a ghost, the architect, a name that doesn't belong to anyone anymore. And maybe that's the price of brilliance in our world. You get remembered by strangers and forgotten by everyone you love. But every now and then, when the clock's ticking just right and the world is dead quiet, I hear the vault door swing open in my mind. And I remember who I was. Michael Arcuri, mastermind, ghost, thief. And whether they ever catch me or not, just remember, the perfect crime was never about the getaway. It was about disappearing before they even knew you were there.